What's up, everybody? Andrew Mahone here, going to be showing off one of my favorite decks in standard format right now. This is kind of like a pet project for me. This is Greninja GX. I love this deck. This deck is so much fun to play. It is not like a meta game deck right now, kind of off the beaten path a little bit, but this deck is absolutely a blast to play. Very skill intensive deck as well. I think skill intensive decks like this are just really fun. I love snipe decks too, and I love that this deck just has a lot of options every turn. Reminds me a little bit of land bats from back in the day, but also has got its own thing going on as well. The deck has some very good matchups and has some not so good matchups, so I'm going to be going over those too. But wanted to show off my original list here and just let you guys know where I'm sitting at with it heading forward into the North American International Championship. So let's get right down to it. Play 4 copies of the 70 hit point Froakie. No way am I playing anything else other than a 70 hit point Froakie at a time like this when Buzzwole is just running rampant. 70 hit points, who cares about bubble? If you're bubbling, you're probably losing. 70 hit points is the way to go. Also play 4 copies of Frogadier, who we use that Gale Shuriken ability. Snipes 20 damage when you evolve from Froakie to Frogadier. Excellent, just loads damage up. Snipe damage up on your opponent's side of the board as you evolve into Frogadier. Then, as you evolve into Greninja GX, we play 3 copies of Greninja GX. You have that Shuriken Flurry ability, places 3 damage counters anywhere you want on your opponent's side of the board when you evolve from hand. So, 4-4-3 line, fantastic. This is the backbone of the deck, but we've got a lot of other auxiliary attackers in here and some support Pokemon as well. We play a 2-2 Octillery line to keep the deck up and running. Make sure that you're drawing appropriately. Octillery is both awesome and a little bit rough for this deck to rely on. Octillery is fantastic if you have unlimited bench space. If your opponent's not playing Parallel City, set up an Octillery, you're going to be drawing flames all game and just getting your Frogadiers, your Greninjas out, boom, 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 whatever. And it is fantastic. Makes it so that you have the most ideal board state possible. If your opponent does play Parallel City, Octillery really gets in the way because you're depending on Octillery to draw cards, but you don't have the bench space for it because you really want to have at least, 3 kind of Greninja lines in the works at all points in time and an attacker up front swinging away. And Parallel City can really make it hard to fit all of that down. So depending on Octillery, back and forth on it. I think if you could maybe have a list that I think ideally, if your opponent's not playing Parallel City, Octillery is the way to go. But in a format where Parallel City is a card that is played pretty popularly, might need to find a way to play the deck without Octillery. So back and forth on it, but Octillery's Abyssal Hand is just an incredible card and allows you to continue to just end your opponent, to lower and lower amounts, and then you continue refreshing your hand with Octillery, and then also you don't take all your prizes until the end of the game, all at once, and then, it can be very stressful for your opponent to deal with. Also playing 2 copies of Latios, 1 copy of Tapu Koko, 1 copy of Mewtwo, and 1 copy of Tapu Lele GX. My original list was not playing Tapu Lele GX. Had to fix that real quick because the deck was drawing dead. Riley helped me out with that inclusion, so that is very important. Yes, and also Energy Drive can be great with the Choice Band, can do some relevant math. Just a swing for 1 energy is fantastic. I do love 2 Latios in the deck. Latios is just super good against those mini Buzzwoles in Buzzwole. Also great against Malamar, doing 60 damage to Malamars, 30 damage snipe. I mean, it's fantastic against those mini Buzzwoles as well. Mini Buzzwole is almost never one-shotting this Latios. I mean, it's really never going to one-shot Latios with Sledgehammer unless you happen to be at 4 prizes. But if you're not, they are 2-shotting Latios. You are doing breakthrough for 60-30. You actually love doing 60-30 to the Buzzwoles because you don't want to knock them out, right? You want a Buzzwole mini to have 120 damage on it. That's perfect, right? And then you want to get another one to like 120 damage on it. And then you want to skip all the way from 6 prizes down to 2, right? You don't want to actually knock anything out versus Buzzwole. You want to play the prize game better than they do. You want to be in total control of the prizes, and that's what this deck can do. This deck can completely play around Beast Ring, which is awesome. With the way that you place your damage on your opponent's side of the board, you can make sure that you take 4 prizes in 1 turn. If you take 4 prizes in 1 turn, it means your opponent's not going to beast ring, means they're not going to have the juice that they need in order to finish off the game in most scenarios. Also, this deck's very good at keeping Greninja GX out of play. If your opponent has something in play that can knock out a Greninja GX can evolve and then also haste slash in the same turn, shuffle back into the deck. You can also evolve in the Shadowy Hunter, the only threat on your opponent's side of the field that can knock out Greninja. Then they don't have a response to Greninja, and then you can come in and then haste slash after they've done some damage to it. There are just tons and tons of options to do some great things with this deck. We also play one copy of Mewtwo from Evolutions and one copy of Tapu Koko promo in this deck. Tapu Koko promo, just another great snipe card, dealing 20 to everything on your opponent's side of the field. Also great just for having free retreat. Nothing in this deck has free retreat except Tapu Koko promo. Then Mewtwo, if your opponent happens to get trigger happy with that Buzzwole coming in quick with the absorption or just coming in fast with Knuckle Impact, something like that, Mewtwo can just pump the brakes right away. Mewtwo is also fantastic against mini Buzzwoles too, because mini Buzzwole just has to two-shot this thing in most scenarios, and then you just go in, whatever, you're totally content just popping for, 80 damage, whatever, completely fine. If your opponent is swinging around, if they are swinging around with the mini Buzzwole, then you just come in with Mewtwo and you can take care of that thing easy peasy as well. Mikey's in the house. What's up, Mikey?
Oh, what's up?
So that's it for the Pokemon line. I love the division here. Latios has proven to be a real all-star. Love starting with the Latios. It's just so good against Buzzwole, and I think that this deck, has a great Buzzwole matchup, also has a great Malamar matchup, so long as Malamar's not playing too many parallel cities, which many of them are starting to cut parallel cities in order to fit other cards to make the deck a little bit more consistent. So against Buzzwole and non-parallel city Malamar decks, this deck does have fantastic matchups and just does an excellent job all around, which makes it like kind of a decent consideration for the North American International Championships. If you plan on just hitting Buzzwole and Malamar decks, then you're going to have a great day. However, once you get a little more off the beaten path, you start falling into Zoroark decks or Garbodor decks, or maybe Greninja Break decks, then you're not going to be having such a great time. So this is a very matchup-dependent deck, and if you're playing against just the main two meta decks, then you're going to be doing very good. All right, we play 3 copies of Professor Sycamore. Whoa, 3 copies of Professor Sycamore. Yeah, let's make that 2 copies. Moving on to the supporters, we played 2 copies of Professor Sycamore, 3 copies of Cynthia, and 4 copies of N. Now, originally I was playing 4 copies of Cynthia and only 1 copy of Professor Sycamore, but having the hard draw in here is really, really useful. Sometimes you just gotta go to make sure that you hit things. Also, starting off the game with a Sycamore can be very strong as well. Sycamore is not to be underestimated. We are playing 4 copies of N because this deck will just go behind in prizes very, very easily. So you want to be able to limit your opponent and kind of pump the brakes, and then you continue to refresh your hand with Abyssal Hand as the game wears on. Then we are also playing 2 copies of Guzma. I do actually really like Guzma in this deck. It can allow you to finish off things in a pointed kind of way. If your opponent is building up a Buzzwole or something big on the bench, you can just use Guzma, take it out with Mewtwo. Really allows Latios to get in there and hit things that it wants to hit as well, like Malamar. Hitting a Malamar for 60 is very good. Using Guzma to get that Latios into the active position is also a big deal because you're only playing like 1 Floatstone in this deck as far as free retreat options. And then we are playing our 4 copies of Super Scoop Up too. So Guzma is a valid switch card as well. You could cut to like 1 Guzma, but I've been actually winning games with Guzma lately, so I think I'm going to keep it at 2. I love the 4 copies of N since this deck does play Octillery and goes behind in prizes early. 3 copies of Cynthia and 2 copies of Sycamore feels good to me. This deck has been drawing the best with this draw supporter lineup so far, so I'm sticking with this right now, and I'm feeling like this is pretty much the sweet spot for this deck to be at. If we were to cut the Octillery line, we would be increasing our Sycamore counts, going to 4 Sycamore, without a doubt, because this deck needs to make sure it's drawing cards. And Cutting Octillery, something I'm actually considering to help make the deck a little bit stronger against Parallel City. As far as the items go, we do play 4 copies of Super Scoop Up. Super cool, allows you to reuse your Greninja GXs, allows them to go in, take a hit with Haze Slash, then you can scoop it up, coming with a Mewtwo, whatever, what have you. If a Latios has been damaged by a Buzzwole, you could scoop up the Latios, go into something else and hit with a different Latios, whatever. Super Scoop Up is awesome, and especially for reusing the Greninja GXs and reusing their abilities. You need something to reset it, and I love the Super Scoop Up also doubles as a switch card. It can allow you to clear your Lele out of play if you use Lele Wonder Tag to get a supporter, but you don't want that Lele in play because it's actually a liability. Super Scoop Up, get it out of there, Sycamore it, discard it, whatever. Super Scoop Up is very sweet in this deck, and I love having 4 copies of Super Scoop Up. 4 copies of Ultra Ball, obviously, go get your Pokemon, get them out, whatever. We need 4 copies of Ultra Ball to help get the deck set up. 3 copies of Choice Band, because in decks like this, every single damage counter matters, so we would need damage modifiers as well, since the whole point of this deck is to add up damage until you just overwhelm your opponent with damage counters all over the field. So the difference between using Breakthrough, for instance, on that Latios for 30 and then using Breakthrough for 60 is huge. I mean, that's a whole Greninja GX evolution, right? I mean, just adding 30 damage like that is fantastic. The difference between, I mean, obviously Mewtwo Psychicking a Buzzwole with 3 energy without a Choice Band and with a Choice Band is also huge. And then weakness getting doubled by Choice Band is even more reason why we need to play 3 Choice Band in here, because Breakthrough for 60 against a Buzzwole is not nearly as good as Breakthrough for 120 with the Choice Band, right? So Choice Band really helps sweeten the damage in this deck. Also, using Flying Flip with a Choice Band is just amazing. 50 and then 20 damage to everything is awesome. Choice Band is an all-star in this deck and would not consider cutting that. Also played 2 copies of Timer Ball, which I love and also hate, because I hate flipping 2 tails on Timer Ball, but when you flip 2 heads, it's all worth it, right? So Timer Ball helps you get your evolutions out. Nothing is sweeter than doing Timer Ball double heads and getting like the game-winning Frogadier and then also Greninja or something like that. 2 copies of Rescue Stretcher to help get your dudes back when they inevitably end up in the discard pile from Parallel City or from getting knocked out, because your opponent will be targeting down Frogadiers like it's their job, right? So Rescue Stretcher can help get those flowing throughout the course of the game. I actually do really like just 1 copy of Aqua Patch in here. When you hit it, it's great, right? I mean, we don't play a ton of water energy, so you can't really play more than 1 or 2 Aqua Patch. Felt like 2 Aqua Patch, I was seeing it more than I could use it. But with 1 Aqua Patch, usually by the time I see it later in the game, I can probably use it, and I probably am very happy to see it. So the 1 copy Aqua Patch has been working out for me just fine. With 4 copies of N, 4 copies of Cynthia, you can kind of just shuffle that Aqua Patch around until there's finally a water in the discard pile that you can throw into play with Aqua Patch. 1 copy of Floatstone gives you nice free retreat, much wanted free retreat. I think 2 maybe Floatstones would be ideal, but there's not really a ton of space in here. 1 copy of Field Blower and 3 copies of Brooklyn Hill keeps this deck away from Parallel City. You need 4 Parallel City counters in this deck. 1 copy of Field Blower, 3 copies of Brooklyn Hill is ideal. You don't really want 4 copies of Brooklyn Hill as I had originally had, because then your hand clogs up and you don't actually get to Abyssal Hand for your maximum kind of cards, right? Because you'll just have 2 or 3 Brooklyn Hills in your hand and a Brooklyn Hill in play, and that's not very good. Field Blower can allow you to, Field Blower your own Brooklyn Hill and then put down another one, things like that. Cute stuff to be able to Abyssal Hand for more cards, so that's really good. Also can remove tools from Garbodor, even though I prefer really against Garbodor just to go in there with Greninja GX and GX that thing, right? Shadowy Hunter GX the Garbodor, hey, take care of it that way. That's one way to do it. The other way is to use Field Blower. I don't think that you necessarily have a great Garbodor matchup, though you can beat the Buzzwole Garbodor deck. You can definitely beat that one, but if you run into any other Garbodor decks, then you're going to be having a little bit of a rough time. Anyhow, 1 Field Blower is enough in this deck, and I like this as far as the item division. Very good for this list that I have here. I have moved up as far as the, oh my goodness, that is not coming up. I have moved up as far as the water energy. I'm at like 4 waters now. I was at 3 for a little while, and then I was at 4. I'm back at 4. I like 4 waters, 1 Aqua Patch. That's working out for this deck just great. I've tried other things. I've tried unit energies. I've tried that Dusk main, right, promo that does 60 to any sort of GX or EX. I've tried a whole bunch of stuff in here. I mean, this deck is still a work in progress, but this list, I can actually just say that this list does do very well against Buzzwole and Malamar as it is constructed, though. I've been seeing a lot of success in my testing with it, so I can say that this list is tested approved and is working good. Now, that's not to say that it's perfect. I'm still working on it, since this is a deck that doesn't exactly get a lot of people aren't necessarily playing Greninja, right? So there are not exactly a lot of minds working on finding out the perfect Greninja deck right now. I'm probably one of the few people still trying to work on finding a great Greninja GX list. So, there could be a lot to be discovered as far as how to play Greninja GX optimally, but I think this is a great place to start for anybody interested in building a fun and pretty good Greninja deck. So anyways, thank you all so much for watching the video. Make sure to like the video, sub to the channel, ring that bell. Let me know, what do you guys think of Greninja GX in the comments below. Make sure to check out the sweet links in the description too, and also follow me on Twitter at enjoyfriend, ENJOI friend. Peace.